Alright, and the last thing for the hands can be very, very tricky and very complicated, so I'm going to try and make this as simple as possible. I'm going to cover two different methods for doing the hands. One is what we call the relaxed position, which is what his hands are, they're kind of down at the side, and the other one will be for the T-pose, which is his arms straight out. So for those of you who modeled his arms straight out across, it'll be a lot easier to rig. For those of you who did the relaxed position like me, it's a lot more harder, but I'll cover all the steps. Just a lot. It's not super per se hard, but it's just complicated, and you have to press every button in the exact order, or else you could have a lot of problems. So I'll cover the T-pose first. That should take 5 or 10 minutes. If you guys want to jump ahead, you can click the link to jump ahead, or if you want to just watch it for a few minutes to see how that works. So I'll cover both methods. Alright, so let me jump over to, I have a file right here where we have basically the arm straight out as if you were to do the T-pose, so his other arm would be out to the side. So this should be everything we have so far. So what we have here is the IK is already set up, and if we move the hand, you can see that the joints are moving correctly, so that works. So the only thing now is to rig all the fingers together. Everything's already been named the same naming convention, with all the joints being the same. So what we have, what we're going to do first is we're going to create some rings or control rings to control the hand. So let me go over to the curve section, and let's create a circle. Looks like I should probably adjust the window size. So let's put that over there, pull this down a bit. Alright, so that should fit a little better with the video screen. Okay, so we'll take the curve. I'm going to draw a curve in the front view right around the wrist, and I'm going to draw one more curve in the side view right above one of the knuckles. Okay, and then let's go grab the curve here, which is going to be the wrist control. I'm going to hold the V key and the middle mouse button and use the middle mouse button to drag and click it, and that should lock it in place right to the joint. Also, make sure you're in template mode in your character so you don't snap to the vertices. Alright, so once that's in place, we can go over and freeze the transformations. We don't have this. Once you're happy with the scale being in the right order, so let's go modify freeze transformations. That clears out that. So the next thing we want to do, if you have any history, you can also delete history. Edit, delete by type history. So that clears out that. So now we're going to go parent this together. So this is going to be the parent. This will be the child, so hold shift and grab it. And so the control will move the IK, so we'll do constrain, point constrain, and make sure maintain offsets on there and press add. So now when we grab just the control, you can see that it moves his hand around, which is great. But you also notice that his hand bends forward, which is okay, but you also don't get the option to rotate his hand with the point constraint. So we're going to do one more. So we have the point constraint moving the IK, but let's grab the control curve, and then let's grab the wrist control. So any one of these joints here is all the wrist. So holding shift and grabbing that, so parent to the child, constrain, this is going to be an orient constraint. And I guess the constraint options again should be maintain offset and the usual. Alright, so that's been attached now. So now if I were to take just the control curve and move it, it does the same thing. The hand stays in the same direction all the time. And if I go to rotate now, he can wave and you can rotate his hand wherever he wants. Alright, so let's put those back on there. So now we have those attached. So the curve will move the hand, but now let's do some finger controls. Actually, also of note, let's click up this. So here's all the steps I'm doing, so if you guys want to just follow along with the steps here, this is all for the T-pose, and then this is going to be for the relaxed angled position. The difference here is that we have the hand control, which we just did. There's more options for the hand control for the angled, the finger control, and then thumb control is a little bit more, whereas this is finger and thumb, but you have to do this 5 times for everything. This one you have to do 4 times and then once for that. Alright, so we're going to go through all these steps right here, so if you want to pause and kind of keep refraining and looking back on this section right here, this is all the steps I'm walking through right now. Alright. So going back to this, we're going to go and parent these. So I have this control, and I'm going to, I guess, we don't need to worry about adjusting these numbers yet or freezing them just yet. You could delete history now if you want to. So I'll do that, edit, delete by type history. But we don't need to worry about freezing all these transformations just yet, because once we apply constraint or parent, it'll just adjust them anyway. So let me move these in place. Let me go to Insert and pull this down just a little bit, turn off Insert, and then I can V-snap this in place right here. And then Control D on the keyboard, and then V-snap the next one, Control D, V-snap, Control D, V-snap, and Control D one more time, and V-snap the thumb. Alright, so I have all of these on here. If I wanted to get super particular, I could take these and go to Rotate, and rotate these to kind of match the direction of the fingers, but not quite necessary, just up to you if you want to do that. And the same for the thumb. If I wanted to rotate that so it kind of faces the angle of the thumb, you could do that to kind of make it look a little more presentable. Anyway, so again, all these have modifications on here, which I could delete them now, but it doesn't matter because it's going to make more when we do some more stuff. So we're going to take all of these, and I'm going to hold off on the thumb and do the thumb last because it's a little bit different. So I'm going to take the 4 of these, and I'm going to hold Shift and click the wrist control so that lights up, and then go to press the P button. So these are the child, this is the parent, P, and as you can see, it adjusts the numbers to add more. So had we already froze them, it's going to add more anyway. So we take this now, and I can rotate this, and what happens is the finger controls get parented to our wrist control. But also, if you slide forward, the ring on the wrist usually slides off of it. But since these finger controls are parented to the joints, the ring isn't controlling the finger controls. So that's kind of helpful to kind of leave them in place if the hand control falls out of place. Alright, so next up we're going to take this and we can freeze all these transformations now. So modify freeze transformations, and that clears out all these. Alright, so the next thing is we're going to put some constraints on here. So I'm going to take the first one and hold Shift and grab the joint right here, the first joint. And I'm going to go Constrain, Orient Constrain. And if I go to Rotate, while selected on just this joint, it should rotate the finger up and down. Perfect. So if you wanted to get more control, you can click like the middle and it just gives you all the different directions if you wanted to do that. But right now we're just worried about the Z. Alright, so as simple as that. If you want to keep going through the process, we click the next finger. Hold Shift, grab this, Constrain, Orient. Grab this one, hold Shift, grab that one, Constrain, Orient. This one, hold Shift, grab this one, Constrain, Orient. Alright, so all these should now be constrained. If I were to grab all of these and go to Rotate, they should all bend completely down. Perfect. But we also don't want just the knuckles to bend. We want to make sure all the rest of the fingers bend. You can make these really complicated with lots of different controls, spreading your fingers and bending each knuckle, having all the different controls built into here. But I'm not going to worry too much about those. We're just going to make this a simple basic rig, but you can make it a lot more advanced. Alright, so we're going to take these fingers now, and we're going to say, actually do one at a time. Grab this one, and we're going to go over to Window, General Editor's Connection Editor. And so what the Connection Editor will do is connect all the different joints together. So we're going to take this one and load as left, and if you have too many options in here, you could just uncheck the Show Non-Keyable. With this on here, you're going to see a lot of options. It's just easier if you go check Show Non-Keyable, and that takes that out, so it's a lot more simplistic to look at. And we're going to change the Rotate Z on this one. So let's grab the next joint. So we don't need to grab the first one because it already has a constraint on it. We just need to grab the middle knuckle, hold Shift, grab the next knuckle, and we don't need to worry about this one because this one doesn't control anything forward of it, so that's okay. So we have these two joints selected. We're going to load those as right. So now I'm going to say the Z for the left, which is this control. So this control, when I rotate in the Z, will also control these joints. So rotate Z and rotate Z. Alright, so once all those are highlighted in blue, so we have on the left side again is this control right here, and on the right side is each of these. So I have this one, which is joint B, and this one, which is joint C. So when I take this guy and rotate him, his Z will affect the other Z's, and so I can rotate up and down. So if I look at it from the side view, you can see that his angle is bending straight down. So perfect. And we repeat the process again. So this one is going to be load left, and it's going to be the rotate Z. This one and this one are going to be reload right, rotate Z, and repeat again. This one, reload left, this one, reload right. And again, there's a lot of different clicks, but you have to put them in the right order or else you're going to connect things to the wrong things. So this is the, actually I should have named these things also so I can make sure this is the ring finger adjusting the ring fingers. So I'll get to naming those. So this one is going to be the control. This one and this one is going to be controlled or driven. So we're going to rotate Z, and that'll be again Z and Z, which will finish this up. So now if I take all four of these controls and rotate these forward, all of his fingers flex up and down, nice and perfect. Alright, so really simple. If you do every step in the correct order, you shouldn't have a problem. If you went out of order and did something out of order, then it might be problematic. So we'll take this one, and you can see it, they all rotate correctly. So let's go and name these real quick. This one should be left index finger control. I'm going to grab all that, Control C to copy it, and I'm going to paste that in here and call this left middle finger control. This will be left ring finger control, and the last one is left pinky finger control. Alright, so all those are named and all the joints are working perfect. So the last thing now is the thumb. The thumb's a little more complicated because it's not facing the same direction. So the problem is if I were to grab, let's say, this joint, and this joint, so I have all three selected and I go to rotate Z, you see it bends downwards. Your thumb doesn't bend downwards like that, not like the fingers do. The thumb will actually bend under your thumb. When you're grabbing something, your thumb crosses your hand. Your thumb doesn't go back down to your wrist. That's not how you should bend your joints. So we need to do some adjusting to make this work a little better. Alright, so the first thing we want to do to make the thumb work, we want to grab these joints, let's say this one, and you can see that in order to bend the thumb inwards, the rotate Z shouldn't be facing this direction. So to change your rotation, you press F8 on the keyboard, so function 8, and it turns it blue. It's putting in component mode basically, just like you're going to move vertices and all that, but you don't have any controls yet. So you click the question mark right here, and by clicking this, it pops in a whole bunch of crosshairs, or cursors, I guess. We click on one of these at a time, and if you're in the rotate mode, you can rotate. If you're in move, you'll move it, but we want to rotate this. And we want to rotate this in a direction that will make the blue tuck under the hand. So that should work, and let's rotate it downwards so that the red X is flowing into the next one. So rotate that down, and then the blue one should be fine, and that should work for that. So let's grab the next one, and again, rotate this downwards a lot so that the blue will tuck under the hand. Make sure the red X is flowing into the next one. And then grab the last one. So we'll rotate this down again. And maybe rotate forward towards that direction. And we don't need to worry about the last one because, again, it's not controlling anything forwards of it, so we don't need to worry about the rotation. You can adjust it if you want to, but it's not that important. Alright, so that should work for that. So we have our component mode. Jumping out of that would be F8 again. So that pops out. So now if I were to grab all these, so I take this one, and this one, and try rotating it, it should rotate as a thumb would rotate right underneath of your palm. Alright, so once those are adjusted, the next thing is to adjust this guy. So the problem with this is that if I take this guy and I were to go to freeze transformations, it'll zero everything, but your rotation will suddenly, I'll show you real quick, freeze transformations, and now you're no longer rotating in the same angle anymore. So Control Z, I want to make sure I rotate in this angle, so when I rotate it goes that way. So I don't want to freeze my transformations, or not just yet at least. So to fix that problem, we're going to press Control and G on the keyboard. So Control G will create a group, and this group I'm going to call the left thumb group. Alright, so this left thumb group is going to contain just the thumb. So it's a group, but it's really only holding one object in it. But this way the transforms will stick to the group. So now I can take this guy, oops, not this guy, I grabbed the original control now. I'm going to call, I should have called this earlier, left thumb control. Alright, so left thumb control is the original one right here that we played with already. If you press the up key on the keyboard, it'll go to the left thumb group. So what happens is, let's go to Window Outliner. So the outliner, if I go to grab this guy and then click this and press F on the keyboard to fit it, you can see that this guy is inside of the group. So if you press up on the keyboard when you're on this guy right here, it'll go up to the group. So up and down will switch through your outliner, and that's what the up and down arrows mean. So by pressing up, I go to the group level. Alright, so I don't really need the outliner, so I'll just minimize that to the corner. Alright, so while we're on the group, we want to take this group and we want to adjust the orientation. But you notice the pivot point is sitting, let's minimize that too. The pivot point is sitting way over there, so the group pivot point is there even though we made a group containing it. So we want to move that pivot. So let's go to the Insert keyboard on keyboard and press, hold the V in the middle mouse and snap it into position. So we moved it from the 0, 0, 0 to where we need it. And press Insert to turn that off. And now we can rotate this orientation where we want it to go. So I'm going to rotate this way, and don't worry about where the curve turns. That's not important. Just make sure that your rotation is turning the angle that you want it to turn. Alright, so once that's been turned in the right direction, so we'll take the blue and it'll tuck under his hand instead of going straight down. So we've angled the rotation the way we want of the group, and don't worry about freezing transformations. When we click off of there and go back to here, now we can fix this guy. So this guy should be bent back upwards and rotated back into the angle we want him at. Alright, so that should be good enough. Alright, so the original control, we can go modify freeze transformations, and when we do this, notice how the pivot will, or the rotation will change. Now the rotation changed. Everything's 0 as we want it to be, but it's using the rotation of the group. So if I press the up arrow, this is the group's rotation. So now when I rotate, it rotates the direction we want it to, so Control Z that, but the original curve itself has all zeros. So that's the benefit of using the group for that. So we want to take this group now. If I were to take this guy and rotate him, the thumb isn't attached to him. So we want to make sure this thumb curve gets attached, but don't attach the thumb control to the wrist. Press the up arrow and make sure the group is selected. We're going to take the group and parent the group to the wrist. So hold Shift, grab the wrist, and now we can press P on the keyboard, and that parents it. So now we have a whole bunch of translates and rotates on this group, which we can't freeze because it'll erase our orientation. But it doesn't matter because we don't select the group. We click off of that, and the control curve will keep all zeros. It's the group that got all those numbers attached to it. So now when I take this main control, you can see that it rotates the thumb control with it, but meanwhile the thumb is still turned in the correct direction and oriented the same way. So the last thing now is to go and put some constraints on it. So I'm going to say the parent is this. The thumb right here is going to be constrained. So we're going to do an orient constraint on that. So I can take the thumb, I can go rotate, and again it's holding the position of the group rotation even though everything's 0. And when I rotate, the thumb rotates under the hand. Perfect. So the last thing is connection editor again, which is up here. And again, that's Window, General Editors, Connection Editor. You already closed it. So once we have that here, we want to take the thumb control, reload left, take this one and this one, these two joints, reload right, and again, rotate Z will affect rotate Z of this joint and rotate Z of this joint. So now when I click off of that, this one will rotate and tuck the thumb under the palm. Alright, so that's a lot of steps just to get a basic control, so you can imagine how much more complicated it is to do a more advanced where you can control each knuckle bending and each separation of the finger. So that should be good enough for now. So if we take the hand, we can move the hand wherever we want. We can rotate the hand so we can wave, and then we can also take all the fingers, and usually the thumb will over rotate too much. So if I do this, you see the thumb will super rotate by the time the fingers curl in. So I'm going to do that separate. I'm going to grab just these, rotate these into a fist, and then grab the thumb and rotate the thumb part way in, not quite as far. And thus we have a nice fist. And again, you can adjust where exactly the thumb should be positioned to create that fist orientation. And there we have it. So we have a basic control here. Alright, so in order to do this on the relaxed hand, you can skip ahead if you don't have a relaxed hand and you just did this right now and you should be done. But if you want to see how the relaxed hand works, it's basically doing what we did for the thumb for every one of these fingers. So it's a lot more complicated. We also have to do what we did to the thumb also on the wrist. So it's a lot more steps, but the same general process. Alright, so let's jump over to here. Alright, so back to this guy, we're going to do the same thing to this wrist. So let's make a control now. And you can make the same ring if you want to, which is probably a nice convenient method to use. Or you can make something fancy. I could try, let's say, going to create polygon primitives. Let's do a platonic solids. And let's try tetrahedron. So I'll make one of these. I'll draw it on the grid, and I'll make this fancy little triangle, and I can use this triangle as my main control instead of a wrist control around there. It's whatever seems easier and more applicable to you. So let's convert this into a curve now. So I'll take the EP curve tool with linear settings checked, hold the V key, and snap to 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and I'll have to overlap that one to get back to that one. Press enter. And so now all that should be green. Let's take the original piece, select that, and delete it. So now all I have left is this curve. And this curve I'll call the left hand control. Alright, and we're going to take the left hand control. And you can see the pivot point is sitting way down there. So I'm going to go modify center pivot, which puts it in center. And then I can go insert mode, slide that down to about there. And that should be okay for now. Maybe a little further and over. Alright, turn off insert mode, and I can V-snap this into position. Let me put the mesh into template mode so I don't grab any polygons. Hold the V key and middle mouse drag, and it pops that in position. Alright, so we have that in position. Let's rotate this. Actually, no. Because this is a little more complicated than the other method, we're not going to rotate this guy into position. We're going to leave this guy the way he is. So what we have to do now is we need to, let's say, I guess we might as well freeze the transformations. It doesn't matter because once we group it in pairing, it's going to get messed up anyway. But let's go modify freeze transformations anyway. Let's go edit, delete by type, history, just in case there is any history on it. That doesn't look like there is any, so it doesn't do anything. Now what we need to do is to adjust this so that the rotation will stick to the original rotation without modifying these numbers. So we'll press, and let me pull up this. So what we're doing is the steps here. So this is the T-pose, in case you didn't watch the T-pose video. This is the angled view video. So all these steps are pretty similar. This is the hand control, which we're doing now, and the finger and thumb. We're going to do this 5 times each time for each finger. So that'll do that whole section. So right now we just put the hand control in place, and now froze and deleted history. So now we're going to start grouping things. Alright, so if you wanted to pause right here and just go through these steps, that would work also to kind of review if you are trying to go through this. Otherwise, I'll walk you through the steps. Alright, so we're going to take this and we're going to group this. So to do that, we press Control or hold the Control key and press G for group, and that groups it. So we're going to take this, I'm going to rename this the left hand group. Alright, so that's the left hand group, and now I can rotate the group, but the pivot point is sitting way down here, so I need to move that pivot first. Let's press insert on the keyboard, hold the V key, middle mouse drag, and click, insert first, hold the middle mouse, or hold the V key, middle mouse drag, and click that into place, then turn off the insert. Alright, once that's set up, I can rotate this into the position that I want it to be in. So that's forward. Let me scale this downwards so it's a little more accurate. Let's rotate this a little more this direction, and try and make sure that your blue rotation is matching this orientation, and that you have your other controls matching in a direction that you want his hand to bend in. So if you want to bend his hand forward, you would grab this and it would bend it forward. So try and have your orientation in a similar position. Alright, so once we have that, so this is our final hand control. So again, you could put a ring on here, but I made it kind of interesting triangle, so whatever's easier for you. And then all these numbers right here, we don't need to worry about. Don't even bother freezing them because it's on the group. So if I click off of the group and grab this again, everything's zeroed on here, so we don't have to worry about that. But yet it still has the same rotation and orientation we need, so we can still rotate this and his hand will bend inwards. But it has nothing here. So in order to get back to the group, it's basically pressing the up arrow. So you press up and it goes to the group. The reason that's occurring is because if we go to Window Outliner, you can see that if I take the group, click here and press F on the keyboard, it'll find it for us. And the group right here is the hand control. So if I take the hand control and press the up arrow, you can see that it'll switch between up and down, up and down. So that's why up will go to the group, because it's sliding through the outliner, which has all of our parts in it. So I can close that out for now. Alright, so we have the left hand control. We've already made everything the way we need it to rotate now, so we need to control or attach some things. So I'm going to say take the control, not the group, so click off that. Take this so I have the control selected, hold the shift key, grab the IK handle, and then we're going to go to constrain, point constrain. So now if I grab just the handle and go to move, you can see that it moves his hand. So the control, this pyramid shape, is moving his hand. Unfortunately, it doesn't control the rotates, so I can't rotate his hand. So we're going to take the control one more time, not the group, just the control, hold shift, and we're going to grab the wrist control. So any of these will work because it's all the wrist control. We have this selected. We're going to go to constrain. We're going to orient constrain, and again make sure maintain offsets on. Press add, and so all these numbers shouldn't matter. So we click off there, we grab our control, and everything's still 0. The control is still facing the direction we want, and if he rotates his hand, he'll rotate his hand inwards. I can still go to move command. I can move it wherever I want, and he can still wave at us. Alright, cool. So now we have the hand control in place. So now the next step is putting all the finger controls in place. So I'm going to go over to, let's make a finger control now. So again, I can make a simple ring sitting above his finger if I wanted to, kind of like in the last video, or we can make something fancy again. So let's try create polygon primitives, platonic solids, and I'll go with a octahedron, just to make things look fancy. I'll grab this guy, I'll move him up here, a little higher, I'll fit the view to him, and then we're going to go to EP curve tool and trace him out. So holding the V key, I can snap to all the vertices. 1, 2, rotate down some more, 3, 4, back up to there, then down this side, and then back down the same one and go around the sides. Alright, and then I can take the original shape and delete it. So now I just have the curve that's left. So I'll take this curve and I'll rename this left index finger control. Alright, so that's my left index finger control. The pivot point is way down here, so I'm going to need to modify center pivot. And once I do that, I can press insert and pull the pivot down just a little bit so this part will float above the pivot, turn off insert, and then hold the V key and snap it to our index finger joint. Alright, perfect. And so you can see it's floating above the finger. Don't worry about rotating it because we have to do the same thing as the hand control. We need to orient that in a little different position. So let's put a group on this. So Control G will group it. And the group again popped down there. So insert, V snap it to where we need it, turn off insert. So now the group has the pivot point where we need it at. And now we're going to rotate the group. So I'm going to rotate this and this. And again, try and make sure the blue rotation, which is our Z, is facing the angle you want his finger to bend inwards. Alright, so maybe a little more. Alright, so that should work. Kind of hard to tell. Let's put this in reference mode. Alright, so you can see when his finger bends, it'll bend this direction and curl up nicely under his palm. Alright, and so that looks pretty good there. I can adjust this, maybe rotate this a little more. Maybe not, I'll leave that there. Alright, so that's good. And this was on the groups. The groups rotation is fine. I don't need to reset those transformations. If I go over to, while the group is selected, let me rename this to the left index finger group. Alright, so that's been renamed. Now, while the group is still selected, let's go and hold Shift, grab the wrist, and we'll go to just press P on the keyboard for parent. By doing so, the group now gets translates and the rotates adjusted. So we have a whole lot of numbers here, but that doesn't matter because when we select off the group and grab it again, we've grabbed the control this time. If we press up, it'll grab the group, press down, it goes to control. I can modify freeze transformations on the control, and it erases out the translates, but everything is 0, and it still holds the original rotation value that we want. If yours isn't holding the rotation value, it's probably because hold the Shift key, hold the left, hold the E key, hold the left mouse, and I'm set to local coordinates. If you're set to world, you're still going to get this orientation. So if you hold the E key, hold the left key, left mouse button, and then go to local, you'll get the local orientations. I should have mentioned that sooner when I did the rotations up here. But so that's how that works. Alright, so now we have the control set in place. So the last thing is to, let me test this. So I take this guy, and he should rotate and move the control with him. Perfect. So now let's take the control, hold the Shift key, grab the first index joint, and we want to do this on the original control, not on the group. So I take that, and then I go to constrain. We'll do an orient constrain with maintain offset turned on. When I click back on the original, you can see everything's still 0, and when you rotate, he should rotate his finger perfectly in the correct direction under his palm. Awesome. So we're going to repeat this process, but let me do one more step. Let's go over to Window, General Editors, Connection Editor. The Connection Editor will allow us to rotate his fingers in a more curling method. So I'm going to take this guy as the control and load the left. If you have more options here, you can go to Show Non-Keyable, so you get rid of all these things. So if you have a lot here, just go to Show Non-Keyable, and that clears out a lot of the stuff, makes it easier to find this. So we want to rotate the Z on this. So let me go click the next joints. I don't need to grab the first because the first already has a constraint on it. So hold Shift to grab this guy and Shift to grab this guy. So I have these two fingers selected and reload the right. Looks like I accidentally grabbed that guy too. So let me just grab this guy and this guy, reload right. Okay, so that clears it out. So I have joint B and joint C of the left index finger with the left index finger control on the left. So the left side will control what the right side does. So the rotate Z on the left side needs to control the rotate Z on the right side of the index finger joint B and joint C. So if I take this guy now and rotate, his finger should curl, but his finger is curling not in the right direction. If you get this issue, it's just a matter of rotating your pivots. To do this, you press the grab the joint that you want. We don't need to grab this guy because he already has a constraint on it, I think. We'll double check that. So I grab this guy and go to F8 on the keyboard, pulls up the component mode, just like you're going to vertices. And then I can go over to the question mark right here. And once I click on the question mark, you should start to see, actually let's put this in template mode, make this easier to see. Alright, so template mode, we can see our crosshairs right here. The Z is facing that direction, we need the Z facing the other direction. So I'm going to rotate the red arrow around and keep rotating it until the Z is facing the other direction. And again, try and make sure it rotates the curling direction you want it to go. And repeat one more time. So bend that over. And so what we're doing is we're adjusting, just like you insert and move the pivot, we're adjusting the rotation pivot. That looks pretty good. So the red X's are flowing down to the tip of the finger, the Z's are out to the front of them. Click off that, press F8. And so now when I grab the control, he should be able to bend his finger all the way down. And again, we don't need to worry about the control up here with the F8 because it's already got a joint constraint. These don't, these just have connections. Alright, so perfect. He can bend his fingers back and forth. So we'll probably have to do we have to do all those steps for every one of these fingers and the thumb. So to save you the time of doing all that, I'll just do one more on the thumb. Actually, let me do one more on the finger just to make sure you guys get the steps. And then I'll do the thumb. You can always figure out the last two fingers for that. Alright, so let's take this guy again and Control D to duplicate him. And let's go move this and V-snap it onto the next one. So we have another duplicate of this guy. And so let's go check this to make sure he is or isn't parented. And it looks like he already is parented because we duplicated him with the parent already attached to the wrist. So we don't need to worry about that step. If you had already copied this beforehand, then you probably still have to parent him because he's not quite, he wouldn't be parented. But this guy already is, so we're cool there. So this guy, we press up and there is, he's attached to the same group, so that's probably not the best idea because we don't want this guy's group to be attached to him. I guess we could put them all in the same group theoretically, but I'll make a separate group just in case because we have the different orientations are attached to the different groups. So let me go over to, and let me delete this guy out. So I'll just make a brand new one just to make sure we're working correctly. So create polygon primitives, this guy, tetrahedron, draw a new one, move him up here, EP curve, hold the V, Alright, so let's call this one the left index finger control. Modify center pivot. Put the pivot in place. Let's go insert, pull the pivot down just a little bit, turn off insert. We'll go and V-snap it to the joint that we need it at. And while we're there, let's press Control D to duplicate it. V-snap it to there, Control D, V-snap, Control D, and V-snap. Alright, so we have all of these set in place. I'm also going to want to copy these over to the left side, or the right side, so I should probably do that one more time and V-snap that in place so I have one sitting over there for later. So once that's in place now, I should probably also color code these, so I'll take this one, Control A for attributes, object display, drawing overrides, enable, and this should be light blue. Alright, and so I want to do this for all the different points here. Alright, so this guy is going to be the, not the index finger, this guy is the middle finger. So I want to go and rename all these as well. I'll save you guys the time of doing all that. So I'll take the middle finger right now, Control G to group it, left, middle, finger, group. We'll take the group, we'll center the pivot of the group, so insert, V-snap right there, insert off, go to rotate, and we'll rotate the group into position. So rotate that up, over, this direction. Alright, so we have the fingers, the middle finger in place. And we're going to go hold the shift key while the group is still selected, grab the wrist, P for parent. That puts a lot of numbers there we don't need to worry about. We'll click off there and we'll take the finger control, modify, freeze, transformations, and that's clear. Alright, so once that's done, we'll go to take this guy, hold the joint, go to constrain, orient constrain, then click this guy again, reload left, take this joint and this joint, reload right, connect the rotate Z to the rotate Z to the rotate Z, and try this again. So I press rotate, and you can see his finger still bends the wrong direction because we have to go press F8, make sure we're in the question mark mode, grab each of these and rotate the Z so it faces him. If yours already works in the right direction, then you're perfectly fine. You don't have to worry about this step, but in case yours is bending the wrong direction, you'll have to rotate it upwards. Alright, press F8 to jump back out of that mode, grab the control again, make sure it works, and I can rotate his finger inwards. I can grab both of these at once and rotate both of these inwards, so I have two fingers. Awesome. Now I'm not going to do the rest for the other two. You guys can repeat those positions again. So I'm going to leave those alone. And the same thing for the thumb. It's slightly different, but mostly the same. So we already have this. I'm going to rename this to left thumb control. Alright, so left thumb control. We're going to make a group for this. Control G. And we'll name the group left thumb group. We'll take this group while still selected. We'll go insert mode, V snap the pivot to here, turn off insert, rotate this into the right position. And the right position in this case is going to be rotating the thumb a little further over, so the thumb bends under the palm. And once I'm happy with that position, I can go to hold the shift key, grab the joint, and P for parent. Alright, so that puts a lot of numbers there which don't matter because when we grab the original joint, we can modify freeze transformations and it clears out this and we're fine. And the reason we rotate it sideways, if I grab this guy, and this guy, and I try and rotate, you see his thumb isn't rotating in the correct direction. So we need to make sure his thumb rotates correctly. So if I go over here to, let's say, this guy and press F8, and click this, actually this one already is bending the right direction, and this guy's bending the right direction, and this guy looks like his, I guess his Z could use some adjusting. Alright, put the Z in that direction so his thumb bends under. Alright, cool. So turn off F8 to jump out of that mode, and now when I grab this thumb, it'll bend under. So it's probably bending too much under. So let me adjust that again, F8. Aim that up a little more so it doesn't bend into his wrist. Okay, and then F8. So now it'll bend his thumb under his palm. Cool. And if I had all three joints selected, it'll curl his thumb under his palm, which looks a little more natural than bending it off to the side over here. Alright, so Control Z that, put that in place. Alright, so next thing we want to do is we want to orient constrain these. So let's take this one, hold Shift, grab the thumb joint, constrain, orient, grab this guy, and I should be able to rotate right under the thumb, under the palm. And then the last thing is connection editor again. With the original one selected, the control, go to reload left, grab the two joints I want, this guy and this guy, reload right, and attach the rotate Z to the rotate Z. So all done now. This joint by itself has all zeros, and when he's rotating, it rotates his thumb under there. And if I grab these two and rotate these on the rotate Z, they'll rotate under there as well. So we can start making a fist. Perfect. Let's undo those. And we also want to change our colors. So Control A, enable overrides, go with the light blue. And this guy, enable overrides, light blue. And the last one, light blue. Alright, cool. So that's in place now. And then we want to lock and hide some things. So these I don't need the translates on them, and I don't need the scales and visibility. So lock and hide selected. And this guy, I do want training sights, I do want rotates, but I don't need scale and visibility. Lock and hide selected. Alright, cool. So everything's set now, so I can move his hand wherever I need it to go. I can rotate his hand, he can wave, and then I can grab his fingers, and I can rotate his fingers and curl them inwards. Alright, perfect. So that is a lot of steps to get the finger rig working. Let's Control Z and drop that back in place. I'm going to pause the video and run through these two, and then the same thing, you just have to do all those steps over again for the right hand, and then I'll resume the video and we'll finish up the elbow and the rest of the rig. Okay, and so here we have the finished hand controls now. So I just did the same steps to the rest of the fingers. So if I were to grab all 4 of these, I can go to rotate, and I should be able to rotate all his fingers inwards. I can grab the thumb, and I should be able to rotate his thumb inwards. I can grab the blank area and just kind of rotate his thumb. Any other directions also to kind of make a fist shape if I wanted to. So he has kind of a fist. And then I can take the hand and I can move the hand wherever. So I have all the controls built into his hand now. Put that in place. And I also did the same to the other side just now. So I have again all the controls here. I can go to rotate, and I can rotate his fingers inwards. Alright, so once that's all set up, the next step is to put the elbows into place. So for the elbows, all we have to do is click on, just like we did with the knees. Let's go create a shape that'll control the elbows. Let's go create, and again, you can make any shape you want. I'll make it something interesting. So platonic solids, and I guess I'll use that again. So I'll draw this out here, about the same size as the other ones. That looks about the same, maybe a little smaller. Okay, fit that on the camera. And let's go and trace that. So using the EP curve tool with linear selected, hold the V key and click each of the corners. Okay, enter to confirm it. I will grab this and we'll delete out that, so I can take this guy, call this one the left elbow control. Alright, I'll take the left elbow control with the mesh in template mode. Hold the V key. Oops, I need to center the pivot first. So modify center pivot. Okay, and then hold the V key and middle mouse click it into place. That should be the elbow control now. And before I slide it backwards, let me Control D and pop a new one in place. Alright, so I have both controls now. Grab both of these at once and slide them both back at once. Cool, so that should work there. If I wanted to make them a little bit smaller, I suppose I could make them smaller. Let's take all of them at 0.75. Okay, that should work for elbow controls. Maybe a little bit closer. Alright, so once that's there, we'll go modify, freeze transformations on those. Clears them both out. I don't have any history to delete, so let me take this and Control A for attributes, enable overrides, and make this a light blue color. And this guy, enable overrides and make him a red color. There we go. Alright, so now they're color-coded to each side, left and right. I'll take the first control, Control A to get rid of the attribute editor. And we'll take this, and we need to put a pole constraint on here. So that would be under constrain, pole vector, and we'll click off of that first. Or yeah, constrain, pole vector. Okay, grab this guy first. And then constrain, pole vector. Nope, looks like we had to grab this guy and the IK handle. And then go to constrain, pole vector. Alright, there we go. So yeah, grab the control first, and then grab the little crosshair right here second, and then go to constrain, pole vector. So now when we go to move the handle, which is our control, you can see that the elbow will move, the elbow control moves the elbow. Alright, so one more time. Let's go click the control, let's click the IK crosshair. Holding Shift key, we'll go to Constrain, Pull Vector, and that should work there. So I can grab this one, move him around, and grab the elbow, and control the elbow. Awesome. So he's pretty much almost done at this point. The last thing left to do is to put the global controls on him. So basically, if we wanted to move him into the scene, let's say we want to drop him in place and we want to start walking from over here to here, we need to move him to there first so we can start. So we need to control it and move all of them. We don't want to have to grab every one of these pieces because you can see he's going to hang behind everywhere. So we're going to make one more control. I'm going to use the EP curve tool, and let's draw something on here. Hold the X on the keyboard to grid snap. I'll start here. Let's go to there. Okay, so kind of an interesting shape, something that'll fit the pattern. So, but you can use a circle if you wanted to, whatever shape you wanted to use. All right, so this is going to be called our global control. So this will move everything, and we're going to make sure the pivot is centered still to the grid. The 0, 0. This way, when you drop him in the scene, he's completely centered. All right, so we'll take this guy, and we just need to parent pretty much everything that's controllable to him. Make sure there's no history on here. Freeze transformations, there's no transformations on there. Let's change the color first. So Control A, let me make this a yellow color. So since it's a main global control, it would be yellow. And then for this one, Control A, let's go with the only thing we don't need. Actually, we'll keep all these. So translate, you can translate them, move them, rotate them, scale them, and do visibility. So we'll keep all those. So let me grab these controls. Let's grab the elbows. Yeah, in the elbows we need to lock and hide the rotates and visibility. So let me right click and lock and hide selected. Alright, so now we just have the elbows cleared out translates and the knees have translates. We need the root control, which also has to have some translations frozen on that, so I'll get back to that one. We'll grab the eyes and the feet. Alright, so that's mostly what we have to grab. We also have to grab the hands. If you had the T-pose, then you should just be fine to grab the hand controls. But since we did the relaxed position, we had to group this one. I need to grab the group, and I can't grab the group visually on the screen. So let me go to Window, Outliner, all the way down at the bottom. I can grab the left-hand group, hold the Control key, grab it, and the right-hand group. So I grab both groups, and that selects the hands. But if you didn't have groups, then you could just grab those manually. Alright, that should be everything. Knees, elbows, hands, feet, and eyes, and the root. Grab the last thing, hold Shift, and grab the global last, P for parent, and that should parent everything. So now if I grab the global, it should move the entire rig. And at that point, we're pretty much done. Just make sure everything works. You can just double test everything. If I grab my root, I noticed that my rings aren't attached, so I forgot to attach those earlier, so I have to go back and attach those. But everything else should move with this guy, so I can position him into the scene, rotate him wherever I want. So the entire global rig is finished at this point. So yeah, we're pretty much done. Let me go back and fix these in case you guys have the same issue here. If you missed anything. If we take this and we try and parent it, it won't parent because there's locked attributes. We need to reveal those. We go to Edit, Channel Control, and then scroll down at the bottom. Find the translates and move those over. Find the scales and move those over. So now that we've done that on here, we can unlock these. I'll also have to do it to every one of these above. So let me grab this as well. So I'll grab this one, this one, this one, and this one. And I think the jaw also needs to be grabbed. So we'll grab all those and I have to unlock and hide all these. So all these scales need to go back. And all these translates need to go back. And then let me take all of these, right click, and unlock selected. So that should unlock everything. Now that everything's unlocked, I should be able to parent these things together. So let me close that out. This is the child. This is the parent. Actually, before I do that, this one needs to have some resets on the controls. So let me go modify, freeze transformations on that. And the back joint, because it has connections coming in, we'd have to basically break the entire parent off of here. So in order to break the parent off, we have to go over to what is parented to, which is the root. So if I click on the root bone, right click, hold the right click, I can go to actions and unparent, which will unparent the root from the root control. So now this has been unparented and separated. So now it's been separated, now I can modify freeze transformations, zero those out, which I should have done the first time. And now I can say child, parent, P, and so now I have zeros on here and the ability to move them around. Then this guy, child, parent, P, so that should move that ring around. And this one, child, parent, P, that should allow me to move this ring around. So that moves pretty much everything. The only thing missing now is if I go to the head, it looks like the jaw wasn't attached to the head. So child, parent, P. So now if I rotate the head, it rotates the jaw with them. If I rotate all the way down here at the lower back, I can rotate all of them there. And if I go to here, it rotates them. And this will move the whole rig. So that fixes up all that. So let's go back and relock and hide some stuff. So the main root, I don't need scale and visibility, so let's lock and hide those. And I'll just keep the translates and the rotates on there. And then let's grab this ring. Let's just grab all the rings. Alright, so that should be everything. We don't need any translates on these, and we don't need any scales, but I do want to keep the tongue control. So we'll go lock and hide selected. And so now if I click on each of these individually, I have all the rotates available for each of these joints because I grabbed them all and did it globally. Alright, cool. So that pretty much finishes up the rig, fixing up any adjustments there. Yeah, that's everything should be finished. There's an extra connection here. I don't know if I can delete history on that. Possibly. Edit, delete by type history. No, I won't fix that out. Alright, that's probably part of the rig, so we'll ignore that. So that's everything. We can grab the rig, we can move the entire rig. I can grab any part of them. I can move different parts. I can grab the feet. I can move the feet, and I have all the parts that I need attached to each of these. I can grab, let's say, the hand, move the hand, translates and rotates. Okay, rotates on here. Let's pull him out of template mode so he's finished. And okay, we're pretty much done. The next step is to paint the weights on the character, which will allow the mesh to deform. Also, in the outliner menu, let's take the IKs and let's attach those to the rig as well. So shift, select all those, control to grab the global last, and P for parent, and that'll put the IKs inside of here. So this entire global is now controlling the entire character. So I can move all of them, and in our scene it's one piece. So again, going just to see how it looks in the hypergraph hierarchy, grab this, fit it in the window and zoom out, and you can see that the control pretty much has the entire rigged character in one section. The remainder is all his polygon pieces, which we'll cover in painting weights and how to combine that. But that finishes up the rig. He's all fully rigged and attached. I can close out these, and that finishes up how to do rigging.